Shin Ha-ri is a young woman working in the research and development department of Gyo Food. She lives a simple life, enjoying her work and friendship with her coworkers. However, her family's financial difficulties force her to look for extra income, and her romantic dreams seem far away. Everything changes when her best friend Jin Young-seo, the daughter of a powerful businessman, comes to her for help. Young-seo is trying to avoid another blind date organized by her father. She asks Ha-ri to go to the meeting in her place and do her best to scare off the potential suitor. Ha-ri reluctantly agrees, thinking it's an easy task and a great way to make some money. Her task is clear: to behave as inappropriately as possible and push the man away. On the blind date, Ha-ri executes the plan. She intentionally behaves provocatively, jokes loudly, and tries to make her partner lose interest in her as soon as possible. However, when she looks at the man across from her, she discovers that he is none other than Kang Tae-moo, the CEO of her company. Tae-moo is a successful and businesslike man who has returned from overseas and is the head of Gyo Food. Tired of the endless dates his grandfather arranges for him, he makes a decision: marry the first candidate he sees to end the pressure. For him, romance doesn't matter. Everything has to be pragmatic. But when he sees Ha-ri in front of him, he decides that she is suitable for marriage, despite her eccentric behavior. Ha-ri is stunned that her plan didn't work. Instead of rejecting her, Tae-moo tells her that they should get married. She panics. After all, Tae-moo doesn't know that she's not Young-seo but his own employee. Her lie becomes more and more dangerous, and she tries her best to avoid further meetings. The next day at work, Ha-ri tries his best to avoid Tae-moo. However, he's growing increasingly fond of her unusual behavior, so he decides to speed things up and arrange a new meeting. Tae-moo is confident in his decision to get married, unaware that his bride-to-be is actually his subordinate. Ha-ri, for her part, realizes that her lies may soon be exposed, and comes up with various excuses to keep Tae-moo at a distance. In parallel, Young-seo accidentally runs into Cha Sung-hoon, Tae-moo's personal secretary. Their first meeting is casual, but there is a clear mutual attraction between them. In the meantime, Tae-moo becomes more and more insistent in proposing new meetings to Ha-ri. He even organizes a dinner with his grandfather to introduce his bride. Ha-ri is panicked and discusses the situation with Young-seo to find a way out. But there's less and less time to find a solution, and Ha-ri feels that her lies may be exposed. After meeting Tae-moo, Shin Ha-ri's life is thrown into chaos. She continues to pretend to be another woman, but now realizes that she's facing a much bigger problem than she ever imagined. Tae-moo is serious about continuing the relationship, and his intention to marry is becoming a real threat to her career and personal life. Ha-ri realizes that her lies could come out at any moment, and it makes her deeply anxious. Returning home after work, Ha-ri meets with Jin Young-seo again to discuss the situation. Young-seo, guilty for dragging her friend into this mess, feels awkward, but they both realize that Ha-ri now needs to find a way to break off this relationship without Tae-moo suspecting the deception. Young-seo offers several ideas on how to get out of the situation, but none of them seem reliable enough. Meanwhile, Ha-ri decides to avoid Tae-moo at work by any means possible. However, Tae-moo doesn't give up trying to see Ha-ri. He plans their next dinner, where he wants to discuss the next steps in their relationship. Ha-ri realizes that she has to come up with something drastic to finally scare him off, so she decides to meet him again. She prepares for the meeting by thinking carefully about how to make Tae-moo change his mind. At the meeting, Ha-ri does everything she can to make herself seem even more unacceptable for marriage. She makes up ridiculous stories about her life and tries to act eccentric, hoping it will make Tae-moo give up on the idea of continuing the relationship. But to her surprise, Tae-moo remains calm and doesn't seem at all embarrassed by her behavior. He even finds her attempts amusing and claims that his decision remains unchanged. After this encounter, Ha-ri realizes that her attempts to scare Tae-moo have failed. He remains convinced that they should get married. The realization that she couldn't push him away only increases her anxiety. She returns home, unsure of how she should proceed. Deep down, Ha-ri begins to feel sympathy for Tae-moo, though she tries to ignore it, realizing the consequences. At work, Ha-ri does her best to avoid seeing Tae-moo, but it's getting harder every day, especially when Tae-moo starts showing more interest in her at work as well. Ha-ri finds herself in constant stress, fearing that some of her coworkers will find out about her double life. Tae-moo, however, continues to act confident, as if she knows everything is going according to plan. Meanwhile, a parallel storyline unfolds between Jin Young-seo and Cha Sung-hoon. After their first meeting, their paths continue to cross and chemistry begins to build between them. Young-seo, who is used to living a free and independent life, meets someone who is truly interested in her for the first time, and her feelings for Sung-hoon grow with each passing day. Sung-hoon, despite his cold exterior, is also interested in young Seo, but tries to keep a low profile because their relationship could complicate his professional life. At work, Tae-moo proposes another meeting to Ha-ri, this time for dinner with his grandfather. It's a big step, and Ha-ri panics if she agrees. Her lies will become even more dangerous. She decides to use this moment to have a frank talk with Tae-moo and try to put an end to the confusion. However, the situation spirals out of control when Tae-moo's grandfather, who has great respect for his grandson's opinion, enthusiastically accepts Ha-ri as his future wife. Ha-ri realizes that her situation is becoming increasingly difficult. Tae-moo's grandfather is charmed by her charm, despite her attempts to appear inappropriate. He supports Tae-moo's decision, and even offers to speed up the wedding preparations. Tae-moo, seeing her grandfather's approval, is even more convinced of her choice. After dinner, Tae-moo begins to show Ha-ri more attention. He invites her to dinners, offers to spend the weekend together, and begins to show concern, which confuses Ha-ri. She realizes that this man she's been trying to scare away is starting to show real feelings for her, even though she's been building everything on a lie. But now, in addition to feeling guilty about the lies, Ha-ri is starting to notice that her own feelings for Tae-moo are becoming more complicated as well. At the same time, Ha-ri is facing difficulties at work. Her coworkers begin to notice that something is going on between her and Tae-moo. One of her close friends at the office, Jae-bin, accidentally sees Tae-moo and Ha-ri having dinner together, and immediately starts spreading rumors among the employees. Ha-ri must now not only hide her lies from Tae-moo, but also avoid the attention of her coworkers, who begin to suspect that they are having an affair. Under pressure at work and at home, Ha-ri feels like her world is falling apart. She keeps trying to find a way out of this situation, but every move she makes seems to only make her situation more difficult. Despite her attempts to push Tae-moo away, he becomes more and more interested in her. She realizes that she can no longer handle this situation alone and decides to trust young Seo to find a way out. After dinner with Tae-moo and his grandfather, Shin Ha-ri realizes that her lies have gone too far. Meeting her family is a major step that makes the situation even more confusing. Ha-ri is now forced to find new excuses and justifications to keep her from getting closer to Tae-moo, but her own feelings for him start to complicate matters. At work, rumors of Tae-moo and Ha-ri spending time together spread among the colleagues. Jae-bin is especially active, always looking for a way to stir up even the most insignificant news. Ha-ri tries to ignore it, but realizes that there could be a reveal soon. Hiding the fact that she's not who she says she is becomes more and more difficult, especially when Tae-moo starts inviting her to dinners and meetings outside of work. Meanwhile, Tae-moo, unaware of Ha-ri's double life, becomes more and more convinced of his decision to continue the relationship. His businesslike and pragmatic nature doesn't allow him to throw away his feelings, and if he decides to do something, he goes all the way. To him, Ha-ri seems like the perfect candidate. Her unconventional behavior makes her stand out from the rest, and that's what he thinks makes her unique. But as someone who is used to controlling all aspects of her life, he begins to interfere more and more in her daily life. With each new encounter, Ha-ri realizes that her guilt is building up. She becomes more and more entangled in her lies. To make matters worse, Tae-moo begins to show not only a business interest, but also a genuine desire to care for her. This makes her feel even more awkward, because she can see that he really cares. He invites her to weekends, offers her dinners together, and his attention becomes more and more personal. Ha-ri decides to talk to Young Seo about how she needs to put an end to this game before it's too late. But young Seo, though she sympathizes with her friend, doesn't see a good way out. She advises Ha-ri to just try confessing the truth to Tae-moo. But the very thought of admitting her deception to the CEO of her company scares Ha-ri to the core. She realizes that it could cost her not only her relationship with Tae-moo but also the job she loves. The relationship between young Seo and Cha Sung-hoon develops in parallel. Their date goes well, and they begin to get to know each other more and more. Sung-hoon is not as cold and aloof as he first appears. His caring attitude and attentiveness attracts young Seo, and a real bond begins to form between them. However, they both realize that their relationship can also become complicated because of their closeness to Tae-moo. Meanwhile, Tae-moo, unaware of Ha-ri's double life, becomes more and more convinced of his decision to continue the relationship. His businesslike and pragmatic nature doesn't allow him to throw away his feelings, and if he decides to do something, he goes all the way. To him, Ha-ri seems like the perfect candidate. Her unconventional behavior makes her stand out from the rest, and that's what he thinks makes her unique. But as someone who is used to controlling all aspects of her life, he begins to interfere more and more in her daily life. With each new encounter, Ha-ri realizes that her guilt is building up. She becomes more and more entangled in her lies. To make matters worse, Tae-moo begins to show not only a business interest, but also a genuine desire to care for her. This makes her feel even more awkward, because she can see that he really cares. He invites her to weekends, offers her dinners together, and his attention becomes more and more personal. Ha-ri decides to talk to Jin Young-seo about how she needs to put an end to this game before it's too late. But Young-seo, though she sympathizes with her friend, doesn't see a good way out. She advises Ha-ri to just try confessing the truth to Tae-moo. But the very thought of admitting her deception to the CEO of her company scares Ha-ri to the core. She realizes that it could cost her not only her relationship with Tae-moo but also the job she loves. The relationship between Young-seo and Cha Sung-hoon develops in parallel. Their date goes well, and they begin to get to know each other more and more. Sung-hoon is not as cold and aloof as he first appears. His caring attitude and attentiveness attracts Young-seo, and a real bond begins to form between them. However, they both realize that their relationship can also become complicated because of their closeness to Tae-moo. Things get complicated at work when Tae-moo unexpectedly invites Ha-ri on a business trip. He plans to meet with important business partners in another city, and offers Ha-ri to go with him, explaining that she needs more experience in business negotiations. Ha-ri can't refuse since it's part of her job, but she realizes that the trip could put her in an even more difficult position. During the trip, Ha-ri and Tae-moo spend a lot of time together, which makes her feel even more embarrassed. Tae-moo becomes more and more attentive and caring, and Ha-ri begins to see him not only as a strict boss, but as a man with depth. One evening after a meeting with the partners, the two of them are alone at a restaurant. Tae-moo, who usually keeps his feelings under control, openly expresses his admiration for Ha-ri for the first time. He tells her that he's never met a woman as strong and independent as her, and that it's her uniqueness that attracts him. This becomes a turning point for Ha-ri. She realizes that she can no longer continue to deceive Tae-moo, especially seeing how sincere he is about her. The thought pops into her head that she should confess everything before it's too late. But back at the hotel, she backs away from that decision again, afraid of the consequences. Back at the office, Ha-ri finds it increasingly difficult to hide her feelings for Tae-moo. Every time she sees him at work, she feels guilty, but at the same time she begins to realize that his attention is pleasing to her. Her co-workers continue to discuss their possible relationship, and Ha-ri fears that it's only a matter of time before it's exposed. Meanwhile, Tae-moo doesn't back down. He invites Ha-ri to a family event organized by his grandfather. It's a serious move that he feels should confirm his intentions toward her. For Ha-ri, this proposal is a new challenge. She realizes that if she accepts, the deception will deepen, and she risks becoming completely confused. Young-seo, seeing her friend suffering from this lie, continues to insist that Ha-ri must find the courage to tell Tae-moo the truth. But Ha-ri isn't sure if she can bear the consequences of that decision. Her feelings for Tae-moo are growing stronger, and she's afraid of losing his trust if he finds out that she's been deceiving him all along. After the trip with Tae-moo and the dinner where he first opened up to Shin Ha-ri, her inner conflict intensifies. The guilt over the deception becomes more and more unbearable. She can't deny that her own feelings for him are growing stronger by the day, but the thought that Tae-moo might learn the truth about her false identity scares her the most. She realizes that the further things go, the harder it will be to confess, and the more severe the consequences will be. At work, the atmosphere continues to heat up. Tae-moo openly shows interest in Ha-ri, which doesn't go unnoticed by her co-workers. Rumors begin to fly around the office that something is going on between them. Ha-ri is constantly afraid that her relationship with Tae-moo will be exposed, but even worse, someone might find out that she's not who she says she is on dates. Jin Young-seo is still a loyal support for Ha-ri, but she's also becoming increasingly worried about her friend. She advises Ha-ri to tell the truth before the situation goes too far, but Ha-ri is still hesitant. Deep down, she knows that the truth must be revealed, but she's afraid of how it will affect her relationship with Tae-moo and her work. Meanwhile, Tae-moo is becoming more and more insistent. He invites Ha-ri to his grandfather's family birthday dinner, where he plans to officially introduce her as his girlfriend. This is an important step for Tae-moo. He sees Ha-ri as the one he wants to spend his life with, and has no doubts about his decision. Ha-ri, realizing the seriousness of the situation, is in a panic. She knows that if she goes to this dinner, her lies will become even more destructive. Despite her anxiety, however, Tae-moo enthusiastically prepares for the event, and the grandfather looks forward to meeting his grandson's girlfriend. Tae-moo organizes the meeting with the utmost care, wanting to impress Ha-ri and show her how serious he is about his intentions. He even shares his future plans with her, which makes Ha-ri feel even more uncomfortable. Ha-ri decides that this is her last chance to put an end to the lies. She intends to tell Tae-moo the truth before dinner, and she has several options ready in her head on how to do so. However, every time she decides to speak, something goes wrong. Tae-moo gets distracted by phone calls, or one of her co-workers shows up. She keeps putting off this conversation, and her indecisiveness only adds to her stress. Meanwhile, a parallel storyline with Young Seo and Cha Sung-hoon is also developing. Young Seo, despite her confidence and independence, begins to realize that her feelings for Sung-hoon are getting more and more serious. Their relationship begins to go beyond mere flirting, and Young Seo decides it's time to reveal her true feelings. Sung-hoon, who has always been reserved, also feels affection for her. But his position as Tae-moo's personal secretary complicates matters, for he fears that his relationship with Young Seo could cause problems in their business life. When the day comes for dinner with Grandpa, Ha-ri decides that she can't procrastinate any longer. She realizes that if she doesn't tell the truth before dinner, her lie will become even more destructive and could cause irreparable damage to her relationship with Tae-moo. She pulls herself together and goes to confront Tae-moo, determined to tell him everything. However, when they meet at a restaurant, Tae-moo unexpectedly receives her with special warmth and gratitude. He shares his plans for the future and tells her how important this evening is to him. His words and his sincerity confuse Ha-ri, and she once again backs away from her intention to tell the truth. Every time she's about to speak, she's stopped by the thought that Tae-moo might feel betrayed. Over the course of the dinner, Ha-ri feels increasingly uncomfortable, especially when Tae-moo's grandfather begins to actively discuss their possible wedding. He already sees her as part of his family, and that makes Ha-ri feel even more guilty. She realizes that the situation has now gone too far, and the lies have become too complicated to get out of easily. After dinner, when Tae-moo and Ha-ri are alone together, he unexpectedly proposes to her. For Ha-ri, it's a shock. She realizes that her lies have now reached a level from which it's no longer possible to simply retreat. Tae-moo sees her as his future wife and is serious about committing to her. Ha-ri struggles to cope with her emotions. She's torn between her growing feelings for Tae-moo and the realization that it's all built on deception. She realizes that now that Tae-moo has proposed to her, she needs to tell the truth, despite the possible consequences. Meanwhile, Young Seo and Sung-hoon also face important decisions in their relationship. Young Seo decides to reveal her true feelings to Sung-hoon, but is afraid of how it will affect their professional and personal relationship. Sung-hoon, despite his reticence, also begins to realize that his feelings for Young Seo are deeper than he would like to admit. Their relationship begins to grow faster, but along with it comes the realization that they may be facing serious difficulties. After Shin Ha-ri makes the decision to tell Kang Tae-moo the truth, her tension intensifies. She realizes that there's no turning back, and that continuing to lie will only make things more complicated. However, her fear of Tae-moo's reaction paralyzes her, and she still can't find the courage to talk to him at work. Meanwhile, Tae-moo continues to show her concern and tenderness, which only makes Ha-ri feel more guilty. Ha-ri's co-workers begin to notice her closeness with Tae-moo more and more. Guy Bin and the other co-workers don't miss an opportunity to discuss their possible relationship, even though no one knows exactly what's going on. This only increases the pressure on Ha-ri. She's afraid that the truth might come out at the most unexpected moment. Despite this, Tae-moo continues to be openly attentive to her, inviting her to lunches and business meetings, which only reinforces the rumors in the office. One day, Tae-moo invites Ha-ri to another dinner, and Ha-ri decides this is her chance to finally come clean. She gathers her courage and prepares herself for this conversation, realizing that her confession could ruin everything they've managed to build. However, every time she tries to strike up a conversation about her lie, Tae-moo surprises her again with her warmth and sincerity, confusing her. During dinner, Tae-moo confesses that his feelings for Ha-ri are growing stronger every day. He says that she has changed his outlook on life and that he feels truly alive around her. These words touch Ha-ri deeply, and she realizes that her fear of losing Tae-moo has grown even stronger. Despite her plans to tell the truth, she puts off the conversation again, unable to destroy the magical atmosphere. Meanwhile, the relationship between Young Seo and Cha Sung-hoon continues to grow. After they start spending more time together, their bond has grown stronger. Young Seo realizes that her feelings for Sung-hoon are getting serious, but she's scared about how it might affect her friendship with Ha-ri as well as their professional lives. She decides to confide in Sung-hoon and tells him about her worries. Sung-hoon, in turn, also begins to open up to Young Seo. He confesses that he has noticed her interest for a long time, but has been keeping his distance because of his work. However, now that their feelings have become obvious, he sees no point in continuing to hide. They decide to give their relationship a chance despite all the possible obstacles. Back with Ha-ri and Tae-moo, the next day Ha-ri encounters his attention again. Tae-moo unexpectedly invites her to spend the weekend out of town to get a break from her work routine. Ha-ri realizes that this is another moment when she can tell him the truth, but again feels that it could ruin their relationship. Her internal struggle continues. On the one hand, she wants to be honest, and on the other, she's afraid of losing him forever. The trip out of town turns out to be enjoyable but also stressful for Ha-ri. Tae-moo continues to take care of her, and this only intensifies her feelings for him. She realizes that she's fallen in love with Tae-moo, but her deception still stands between them like a wall she's afraid to break down. Meanwhile, Tae-moo begins to notice that something is bothering Ha-ri, but decides not to press the issue, giving her time to open up. After returning to the city, Ha-ri decides that she can't drag out the truth any longer. She decides to meet with young Seo to discuss her situation. Young Seo supports her and advises her that confession is the best thing to do, despite the consequences. Ha-ri realizes that her friend is right, and decides that this time she will definitely tell Tae-moo everything. Meanwhile, Tae-moo is preparing a surprise for Ha-ri. He wants to take another step in their relationship, and even starts thinking about organizing a trip with her family to get to know them better. Tae-moo truly believes that their future together is just a matter of time, and that Ha-ri is the one he wants to spend his life with. When the moment comes for a frank conversation, Ha-ri decides not to delay any longer. She invites Tae-moo to meet her at a restaurant, and gathering all her strength, begins to tell him the truth. She explains that she's not really who she says she is, and that their whole story started with a misunderstanding when she pretended to be Jin Young Seo on a blind date. Tae-moo listens to her silently, his face growing more and more serious. After Shin Ha-ri's confession, the atmosphere between her and Kang Tae-moo becomes incredibly tense. Tae-moo, shocked by her candor, feels betrayed and deceived. He remains silent for a long time, pondering what he's heard, and Ha-ri sits across from him, trying to hold back tears. She realizes that her confession has changed everything, and now their relationship is on the brink of collapse. Tae-moo finally breaks the silence, his voice cold and detached. He asks Ha-ri a lot of questions, trying to figure out how long this lie has lasted and how she really feels about him. He can't believe that the person he started to have genuine feelings for has been hiding the truth from him all this time. To him, this isn't just a personal betrayal, but the destruction of the trust on which their relationship was built. Ha-ri tries to explain to him that her original intention wasn't evil. She only wanted to help her friend, but that things have gone too far over time. She confesses that her own feelings for Tae-moo have become real, and that's why it was so hard for her to tell him the truth. But despite her best efforts to explain, Tae-moo can't immediately accept her words. Frustrated and confused, Tae-moo abruptly gets up and leaves, leaving Ha-ri alone in the restaurant. It's too painful for him to know that the woman he trusted and counted on was hiding her true identity from him. He needs to be alone and think about what happened. Ha-ri stays where she is, broken and devastated, realizing that she has lost his trust. In the following days, Ha-ri and Tae-moo avoid meeting at work. Tae-moo, trying to cope with her emotions, completely immerses herself in her work and avoids talking about her personal life. Ha-ri feels that everything is falling apart and blames herself for what happened. Colleagues notice their cold attitude toward each other but don't know the real reason, and the gossip about what's going on between them only intensifies. Meanwhile, Jin Young Seo continues to build his relationship with Cha Sang-hoon. They are growing closer, and Young Seo is happy to see their relationship progressing despite all the difficulties. She knows about what happened between Ha-ri and Tae-moo, and as a loyal friend she tries to support Ha-ri. She urges her not to give up, trying to convince her that everything can be fixed if she gives Tae-moo time. Tae-moo can't completely ignore his feelings either. Despite the betrayal, his emotions for Ha-ri haven't disappeared. He realizes that her confession took a lot of courage, and that her feelings for him were genuine. However, the pain of being deceived by her doesn't allow him to simply forget what happened. One day, Tae-moo decides to meet with Ha-ri to discuss their future relationship. He wants to figure out how they can move on after what happened. Tae-moo gathers his thoughts and invites her to meet. Ha-ri, though afraid, agrees, realizing that this is her chance to at least partially rebuild trust. After Kang Tae-moo and Shin Ha-ri meet for a talk, their relationship is on the thin line between recovery and ultimate breakup. Despite resentment, Tae-moo can't ignore his feelings for Ha-ri. He decides to give them a chance, though he's not ready to completely forgive her right away. However, Ha-ri realizes that this will be a long process, and that she will have to work hard to regain his trust. At work, their communication remains strictly business. Tae-moo decides not to show personal emotions in the office, and although their interactions have become more reserved, co-workers notice that something important has happened between them. Jae-bin and the other employees continue to gossip, but no official statements are made, and the situation remains in limbo. Meanwhile, Ha-ri feels the pressure becoming unbearable. She wants to repair their relationship, but realizes she must proceed with caution. Any careless word or act could ruin everything. She does her best to maintain professionalism in her work while showing Tae-moo that her feelings are genuine. Every project they do together reminds her of how fragile their relationship is right now. In parallel, the relationship between Jin Young-seo and Chae Sung-hoon continues. Their romance develops against the backdrop of what is happening with Ha-ri and Tae-moo. Young-seo, always ready to support her friend, sees Ha-ri struggling with the consequences of her lies and tries to give her as much support as possible. Sung-hoon, for his part, also realizes that the situation with his boss and Ha-ri may have an impact on his relationship with Young-seo, but tries not to interfere, keeping a professional distance. At the same time, Tae-moo finds himself under pressure from his family. His grandfather, who has always supported him in all his endeavors, starts asking questions about when he will finally take a serious step in his relationship with Ha-ri. Tae-moo, unwilling to discuss his personal problems with his family, is evasive, but his grandfather is increasingly interested in his grandson's future plans. He sees Ha-ri as the perfect daughter-in-law and longs to see them together, not knowing what they're really going through. Tae-moo, under outside pressure, decides that he and Ha-ri should spend more time together outside of work to give their relationship a real chance. He invites her to go out and discuss spending time outside of the office and in a more relaxed environment. Ha-ri agrees but is inwardly worried because this is the first step to restoring their former intimacy. While walking around the city, Tae-moo and Ha-ri gradually begin to find common ground. They talk about work and their personal lives, and Tae-moo begins to realize that, despite the deception, Ha-ri really cares about him. He sees her not just as a coworker but as a woman who is sincerely trying to repair the relationship. Ha-ri tries not to force things, realizing that it will take time for Tae-moo to trust her again. However, things don't go smoothly. Despite the improvement in their communication, Tae-moo still can't get over the deception, and it shows in the smallest things. Sometimes he becomes cold and distant, reminding Ha-ri that their relationship is far from ideal. Every time Ha-ri notices his aloofness, she feels that past wounds have not yet healed, and she has to make an effort not to show her pain. Meanwhile, things are also getting tense at work. Tae-moo is faced with a number of difficult business decisions, and amidst his personal worries, this puts additional pressure on him. He becomes stricter and more demanding of his subordinates, which does not go unnoticed. Ha-ri, seeing how overwhelmed he is, decides to support him not only emotionally, but also professionally, trying to do his job as efficiently as possible and helping with projects. On one such workday, Tae-moo happens to run into Ha-ri after a difficult meeting. They walk around the office talking about current affairs, and at one point Tae-moo opens up to her. He confesses that he still feels disappointed and can't deal with the deception so quickly, but his feelings for her haven't gone anywhere. This confession unexpectedly shows Ha-ri that despite the difficulties, there's a chance for a rebound relationship between them. Ha-ri, hearing this, realizes that there's still hope. She knows there's a lot of trust work ahead of them, but now she's sure that not all is lost. Their relationship can get back on track if they both try hard enough. However, she also realizes that any further progress they make must be based on honesty and openness, and she can't make any more mistakes. After a frank conversation in which Kang Tae-moo confesses to Shin Ha-ri that his feelings haven't disappeared, their relationship begins to gradually recover. Still, the tension remains, and every moment they share together is accompanied by an undercurrent of caution. Ha-ri realizes that she must now be extremely honest and patient if she wants to regain Tae-moo's trust completely. Meanwhile, back at the office, rumors continue to spread. Bin and other co-workers try to figure out what's really going on between Tae-moo and Ha-ri, but the couple tries to remain professional and avoid any public displays of affection. Ha-ri feels constant pressure as she has to balance her work responsibilities with rebuilding her personal relationship. She's afraid of doing something wrong and losing the chance she's seemingly already begun to win. Tae-moo, under pressure both in his personal life and at work, decides to take a little trip out of town to get a little distraction and recuperate. He suggests that Ha-ri join him to spend some time away from everyone and talk without too many eyes and ears. Ha-ri agrees despite his doubts, realizing that this vacation could be an important moment for their continued bonding. Driving out of town, they go to a cozy cabin in the mountains where Tae-moo once spent time with his family. Nature and tranquility give them a break from all their worries. As Tae-moo and Ha-ri walk around the neighborhood and eat dinner by the fire, they begin to rediscover each other. Ha-ri talks about her fears and doubts, explaining how she felt throughout the time she tried to confess her lies. Tae-moo listens intently, his cold mask beginning to melt, and he realizes that their problems are deeper than just deception. It's important to him to know that their feelings are real, and that Ha-ri is as willing to work on the relationship as he is. During this trip, they begin to regain the intimacy they haven't had in a long time. Tae-moo becomes more open, though his cautiousness still remains. Ha-ri, sensing this, decides not to rush things, realizing that trust doesn't return overnight. She's genuinely glad that they've found a way to be together in a quiet environment where they can avoid pretending or hiding their feelings. In parallel, in Seoul, Jin Young-seo and Cha Sung-hoon are also spending more time together. Their relationship, although it started against the backdrop of the events with Ha-ri and Tae-moo, has become a story in its own right. Young-seo feels that her bond with Sung-hoon is growing deeper, and even though their work and personal lives may overlap, they are both willing to move on, overcoming any obstacles. Sung-hoon, used to always standing in the shadows, begins to take more initiative in the relationship, showing Young-seo that he values her and wants to be on equal footing with her. During a country trip, Tae-moo and Ha-ri get a chance to talk about the future. They discuss that it will take a lot of effort to get things back on track. Tae-moo admits that he's still hurting from the deception, but realizes that Ha-ri wasn't intentionally trying to hurt him. He offers to move forward, but with the condition of complete honesty and openness. For Ha-ri, the offer is a moment of relief. She sees that Tae-moo is willing to give them a chance, despite everything that's happened. Back in the city, they start working on their relationship. Tae-moo no longer hides that he wants to be with Ha-ri and makes it clear both at work and in his personal life. His goal now is to strike a balance between their relationship and corporate life without creating unnecessary gossip. Ha-ri, for her part, realizes it won't be easy, but she's willing to do whatever it takes to keep their love alive. After returning from their out-of-town trip, Kang Tae-moo and Shin Ha-ri continue to cautiously rebuild their relationship. They have decided to be honest and open with each other, and this helps them overcome the barriers caused by their past deception. However, there's still tension, and both realize that it will take a long time to rebuild trust completely. Tae-moo increasingly shows his willingness to support Ha-ri. He behaves professionally at work, but finds ways to help her in difficult situations. Ha-ri, for her part, tries not to impose, maintaining a distance so as not to cause problems for both of them. Despite their caution, the company's employees continue to speculate, sparking more rumors and discussions in the office. Meanwhile, the relationship between Jin Young-seo and Chae Sung-hoon grows more serious. After deciding to live together, they encounter unexpected difficulties. Young-seo's family, upon learning of her decision, puts pressure on her. Her father disapproves of her choice and thinks that Sung-hoon is not good enough for his daughter. However, Young-seo, who has decided to go against her father's wishes for the first time, stays true to her choice and is convinced of her decision. Sung-hoon, having learned of the pressure from Young-seo's family, realizes that it is now his responsibility to prove that he is truly worthy of her. He tries to be more supportive of Young-seo and shows that he is willing to deal with any difficulties. This brings them even closer together, and Young-seo feels that her decision was the right one. Amidst these events, Tae-moo faces a new challenge at work. Rumors emerge that he wants to officially announce his relationship with Ha-ri. This angers the company's shareholders, who believe that the CEO's personal relationship could affect the firm's image. Tae-moo finds himself under pressure from business partners, who hint that his affair could jeopardize the stability of the company. Ha-ri learns of the situation and realizes that her relationship with Tae-moo is now threatened not only by personal problems, but also by external pressures. She begins to wonder if her presence in Tae-moo's life is interfering too much with his career. This again causes her to feel guilt and doubt, and she begins to consider whether she should take a step back so as not to jeopardize his future. Tae-moo, recognizing Ha-ri's thoughts, reacts strongly. He tells her that their relationship is his personal decision, and he won't let anyone interfere in their lives. It's more important to him to preserve their love than to submit to the pressures of society. Ha-ri realizes that his words are sincere, and it gives her the confidence to keep fighting for their future. Against this backdrop, Tae-moo's grandfather decides to meet with Ha-ri to discuss her intentions. He wants to make sure that she's really serious and that their relationship won't hurt the company. Ha-ri meets with him, ready to answer any questions. Despite her excitement, she decides to be honest and frank. She confesses that she didn't realize how serious things would get at first, but now she realizes that her feelings for Tae-moo are real, and she's ready to be with him despite the difficulties. After meeting Tae-moo's grandfather, Shin Ha-ri feels relieved. His approval strengthens her confidence that her relationship with Tae-moo can withstand all the challenges. However, new challenges lie ahead, both personally and professionally. At work, the situation continues to escalate. The pressure from shareholders and business partners is unrelenting. They are demanding that Tae-moo be more cautious in his relationship with a female employee, and this is creating additional tension. Despite his firm intentions to support Ha-ri, Tae-moo finds himself in a difficult position. He realizes that his decisions could affect the stability of the company, and he needs to find a way to resolve the conflict of interest. Meanwhile, Ha-ri sees that Tae-moo is under pressure and begins to worry that her presence may be too much of a burden for him. She once again questions whether she should back out for the sake of his career, but every time she tries to bring it up, Tae-moo assures her that they can get through all the difficulties together. Tae-moo realizes that the only way to protect his relationship and his company is to be as open and honest as possible with his shareholders and business partners. He decides to hold a press conference to openly state his intentions. This is a big step for Ha-ri, and she's not sure if she's ready for the attention. However, Tae-moo convinces her that honesty is the only way to keep their relationship in the public and business eye. Meanwhile, the relationship between Jin Young-seo and Cha Sung-hoon continues to grow. Young-seo remains true to her feelings despite pressure from her father. She sees Sung-hoon as a reliable partner and is willing to fight for her happiness. Sung-hoon supports Young-seo, knowing that their love is worth any hardship. They begin to plan their future together, discussing the possibility of living in a new house and building a life together. Against this backdrop, an important meeting of Geo Foods shareholders approaches, where the company's future strategic plans are to be discussed. Tae-moo decides to use this moment to set the record straight about his personal life. He invites Ha-ri to attend the meeting to show that they're not going to hide their relationship. At the meeting, the shareholders ask tough questions about how Tae-moo's personal relationship might affect the company. Tae-moo confidently replies that his relationship with Ha-ri has no influence on his professional decisions and that he is willing to ensure that the business remains stable. He emphasizes that their relationship is based on trust and honesty, and that it is important to him that the same atmosphere prevails in the company. The shareholders express their dissatisfaction, but Tae-moo uses clear arguments to convince them that his personal life will not interfere with the company's success. Moreover, he shows the results of recent projects that only confirm his competence as a manager. This helps to reassure some of the shareholders, but some of them still remain dissatisfied. After the meeting, Tae-moo feels that he made the right move, but tension remains. Ha-ri supports him, realizing how important this moment was to him. She's grateful to him for putting their relationship first, despite the risk to his career. Tae-moo, in turn, realizes that his feelings for Ha-ri are stronger than he thought, and that he's willing to go to great lengths for their future. After an important shareholders meeting where Kang Tae-moo openly declared his relationship with Shin Ha-ri, the couple begins to feel more at peace. They realize that they have passed the critical moment and can now focus on moving forward together without hiding their feelings. Even still, however, they realize that new challenges lie ahead. Meanwhile, the atmosphere in the office begins to change. Colleagues who used to discuss and speculate about what's going on between Ha-ri and Tae-moo are now accepting their relationship with more understanding and respect. However, not all staff members are happy about this transparency. Bin, who has always loved to gossip, continues to create awkward situations, which sometimes makes Ha-ri uncomfortable. But now she feels more confident and has learned to ignore such trivialities, realizing that the most important thing is her relationship with Tae-moo and their future. Tae-moo, seeing that his acceptance has led to positive changes, decides it's time to take the next step in their relationship. He starts to think about proposing marriage. It's a big moment for him, and he wants it to be perfect. Tae-moo decides to discuss his plans with Sung-hoon, who supports him in his decision and helps him organize an unforgettable day. Meanwhile, Ha-ri, unaware of Tae-moo's plans, is completely immersed in her work. She continues to strive to prove that their relationship doesn't affect her professional achievements. She tries to take as much initiative and responsibility as possible, especially to her coworkers and superiors. Her goal is to show that their love does not interfere with her work, but rather only motivates her. At the same time, Jin Young-seo and Cha Sung-hoon are preparing for the next stage of their relationship. After deciding to live together, they face new challenges. Young-seo's family, especially her father, continues to express their discontent. However, Young-seo stays true to her choice. She and Sung-hoon decide to ignore external obstacles and begin to build a life together. When the moment that Tae-moo has been planning for so long approaches, he invites Ha-ri to a romantic dinner. To Ha-ri, it seems like a normal date, but she notices that Tae-moo is acting especially attentive and caring. They spend the evening together, discussing their future and plans, but Ha-ri doesn't yet realize that she's in for a surprise. After dinner, Tae-moo suggests a walk around the city at night. They walk through the quiet streets, and at one point, Tae-moo stops, takes Ha-ri's hand, and tells her that this day is special to him. He talks about how much they've been through together, how their relationship has endured many trials, and that his feelings for her are growing stronger every day. Ha-ri is touched by his words and smiles but can't see where this is going. At that moment, Tae-moo takes out a ring and proposes to Ha-ri. It comes as a complete surprise to her. Her eyes fill with tears of joy and she accepts without hesitation. Tae-moo embraces her, and they realize that this moment is a new stage in their lives, a stage they're ready to go through together despite their past difficulties. Meanwhile, Young Seo and Sung-hoon also take an important step. Despite pressure from her family, they decide to move forward with their relationship. Young Seo makes a firm decision that she will be happy with Sung-hoon regardless of what people around her say. She decides to talk to her father, hoping that he will eventually accept her choice. When Ha-ri returns home after Tae-moo proposes to her, she can't contain her emotions and shares the news with Young Seo. Both friends feel happy at this moment and realize that their lives have finally started to become what they've always dreamed of. Young Seo, upon hearing the news of the proposal, is genuinely happy for Ha-ri, and at the same time realizes that she herself is on the verge of a big change in her life. After Kang Tae-moo's proposal, Shin Ha-ri's life changes dramatically. She is immersed in wedding preparations and new plans for the future. Despite all the hardships they've been through, their love has only grown stronger. Tae-moo takes the initiative to organize the celebration, wanting to make this day special for Ha-ri. He decides that the wedding should not only be an important event for the two of them, but also an opportunity to prove to everyone that their relationship is built on trust and understanding. However, even though their future seems bright, Ha-ri still has some concerns. She worries about how those around her will perceive their marriage. Some co-workers and friends continue to discuss their relationship, and while most people are happy for them, Ha-ri fears that her personal life will be under constant scrutiny. Meanwhile, Jin Young Seo and Cha Sung-hoon continue their journey together. The decision to live together has been difficult for them, but it has made their relationship even stronger. Young Seo finally decides to disobey her father's pressure and follow her far. She realizes that Sung-hoon is the man she wants to build a future with and is willing to fight for her happiness. As she prepares for the wedding, Tae-moo faces a new challenge. Her grandfather starts asking questions about the family's future. He wants to know when Tae-moo and Ha-ri plan to have children and how they will balance work and family life. Tae-moo tries to be sympathetic to these questions, but he and Ha-ri decide that they will make such important decisions together, without pressure from family or society. They both realize that this is their life and they'll make it the way they want to. When the wedding day arrives, Ha-ri feels a mixture of excitement and joy. For her, the day not only symbolizes Tae-moo's love and support, but also their shared victory over all the obstacles that have stood in their way. The ceremony brings together their friends, co-workers, and families, everyone who has supported them throughout this journey. Young Seo, as their best friend, becomes one of the main participants of the day, genuinely happy for Ha-ri. Tae-moo, looking at Ha-ri in her wedding dress, realizes that he made the right choice. He no longer doubts their future and is ready to devote himself not only to his work, but also to their family. During the ceremony, they exchange vows, promising each other to always be honest and support each other in everything despite any difficulties in life. The ceremony is held in a warm and joyful atmosphere. After the wedding, at the reception, Tae-moo and Ha-ri enjoy the moment with their friends and family. Sung-hoon and Young Seo are also around. Their relationship has reached a new harmony, and they discuss their plans for the future, realizing that there is much happiness and joy ahead of them. As the evening draws to a close, Tae-moo and Ha-ri are alone together. They realize that they have come a long way, from a chance meeting to true love that has withstood the tests of lies, mistrust, and external pressures. Now they are ready to begin a new phase in their lives, full of trust, honesty, and love. The final scenes show how Tae-moo and Ha-ri begin their married life with confident steps, knowing that together they can overcome any obstacle. Their relationship is no longer clouded by doubts or fears, it is now stronger than ever.